The life stone pulsed warmth. Rays of emerald light touched Owen's solemn features, deepening the hollows of his face as he approached the blasted turf occupied moments before by Makala's towering rage. Nearby, Pug spoke softly, his voice diffusing off the cavern walls into 1,000 bouncing whispers. It may be difficult, Pug said, but don't judge him too harshly, Owen. I have performed acts nearly as monstrous in the name of common good. I find that hard to believe, Owen replied. You're a good man. So was he, in his own way. Loyalty can sometimes misguide even the finest of men. Both magicians flinched in unison as muted sword strikes erupted in the corridor outside the chamber. With startling rapidity, the sounds approached, dissolved into pattering, desperate footfalls and howling, half-screamed oaths. Watch yourself, Pug shouted across the cavern. Someone's coming! Harried by a shadowy assailant, Gorath backed into the chamber, his sword flying in a defensive arc before him. Repeatedly, razor-like fists flashed out of the darkness to challenge him, but he skillfully turned the attacks to his advantage. Finding the rhythm of his opponent, he feinted right when he was expected to move left and the warrior barreled past him. Delekhan! Owen exclaimed. Tripped up by Gorath, the moredhel leader crashed to the ground, snarling all the while in slavering fury. Attempting to rise, he slashed upward with his gauntleted fist, but brutally, Gorath stepped inside his guard and delivered a rain of heavy kicks until the older warrior fell quiet. I suggest you lie still, Gorath snapped, wiping rivulets of blood from his face. I may decide to kill you yet. I hear you, Delekhan croaked, his voice weak. For a long moment he remained curled in a ball, his breath tearing raggedly from his throat as he clenched and unclenched his fists. With extreme effort he turned his head and looked upon the mesmerizing light of a life stone. And froze. No! Pug shook his head, apprehension welling within him like a black lake as he caught the moredhel's expression. Stumbling forward, he tried to interpose himself in the way, but his failing strength abandoned him. No! Swatting Gorath effortlessly aside as he rose, Delekhan's eyes flashed with reflected radiance. Like a puppet on a string, he began to stagger forward, his steps almost childish in their plodding. Undoubtedly something had control of his mind. Dazed but alive, Gorath leapt to the attack and jolted hard into the moredhel leader, his miscalculated blow carrying the both of them, not down, but forward, into a life stone. Together, they reached for the sword. Uh-oh! What madness is this? Who? Delekhan looks like he's in pain. Gorath just looks very smug right now. That sound should not be there. Something within my sword consumes. Can't fight it. Him. Ashen sugar. The Valharu souls trapped within the stone are slipping their bonds. We have to kill them both. But what about Gorath? You must. Owen, evil. Can't fight it. Him. Much longer. Can't hold him. Now! Owen stared blankly at the life stone. We killed him, Owen said, a bitter hurt in his words. He came to the kingdom to warn us and we killed him. Don't be petulant, Owen. This isn't the time for it. Glaring at Pug with shock, Owen opened his mouth to reply but found that adequate words had failed him. Angered, he turned as if to leave, but felt the master magician's hand on his shoulder. Wait, Pug said, his voice more gentle than it had been. Meeting the boy's hateful gaze, he motioned for him to stay. You must understand. Gorath was dead the minute he touched the sword. If we had hesitated another moment longer, both he and Delekhan would be dead, and an unspeakable evil would be loose on our world. When Delekhan began to change, you could see the Valharu were attempting to mold them into a form they could use. Do you remember the terrible devastation we saw on Tiramiana? That would be a paradise compared to the lives we would lead under their dominion. I'm telling you this because you now have knowledge and abilities which come with terrible responsibilities. You will have to make decisions far worse than this someday if you continue down the path you're on. You're going to have to learn to think before you act, but never to regret your decisions, right or wrong. Otherwise, you will slowly begin to not make decisions at all. But how can I know which are the right decisions, Owen asked. How can I be sure? Pug squeezed his shoulder. You need to live to a ripe old age to know that, and I'm not nearly old enough to have an answer. All I know is what Macross the Black once told me. He said to train those around me well, to make them powerful, but also to make them loving and generous. I see those things in you. There's the lifestone. The battle was against them. Enraged, war leader Morelf growled orders to his terror-stricken lieutenants as he reviewed their weakening lines from the safety of an elm-shaded hill, watching with fury as his forward ranks of pikemen retreated under an unexpectedly heavy rain of kingdom longbow fire. In a short while, the combined mass of Prince Arutha's relief force and the garrison at Sethanon would be in a position to push them into the only quarter of the city where they would be unable to retreat, and then it would only be a matter of hours before they would be forced to surrender or die in a blaze set to flush them out. "War Leader Morelf, you must come quickly!" Hearing a commotion to his left, he muttered a silent curse on Delekhan's head for leading them on this fool's errand, then snapped his attention to a small group of moredhel who were advancing towards him, faces flushed with excitement. Their leader, a scar-faced whelp of 20 summers, knelt reverently at his feet before breathlessly delivering his message. "At the keep! Your father has taken Prince Arutha, and I believe the Marked One is with him. The tide of the battle turns!" Stalking skeptically after his messengers, he progressed through a ruined avenue and into a cobbled central square filled with conversing moredhel warriors. Above them, Delekhan mounted the fire-blackened parapet wall of the keep, preceded by a mysterious robed figure and the Prince of Krondor. The latter bound head and foot, unable to do anything but follow where he was led. "Brethren!" Silence fell over the square as the robe-clad figure stepped past Arutha and Delekhan and into an archer's turret, a hand placed over his right breast. Ripping open his white garment, he revealed a body made gaunt with hunger, but bearing an unmistakable, curling purple birthmark which resembled a dragon that was the mark of legend. Instantly, a chant rose among the moredhel warriors, many of them falling to their knees in ecstatic reverence. "I have returned, O my children!" Moramandus shouted from the battlements, revealing a glittering sword of gold, its hilt set with stones of lapis. "Hidden deep in the chambers of earth below our feet, Prince Arutha sought to keep this sword from me, from us, the key to our future. For 10 years he imprisoned me in the bowels of this hell against my will, but you have freed me," he said, swiping the air with the sword. 10 years ago I promised you the dawning of a new age. I was repaid with abandonment, but today I am free, because you who followed Delekhan believed in our dream. You have demonstrated your worthiness and loyalty, and as a reward you shall all bear witness to the death of the Lord of the West and the final fulfillment of the prophecy. A dark cheer rippled through the crowd as Moramandus held the sword aloft and faced Arutha, his lips curled back in a wicked smile as he advanced on the dazed prince. Considering the things that had been done to him, the crowd thought it likely their former leader would execute Arutha slowly, and they were ripe for the spectacle. Abruptly, Moramandus halted. Beneath him, the stones of the keep began to tremble, as if the entirety of the structure were being shaken by an invisible hand. His look of proud defiance suddenly turned to outrage. "What treachery is this?" Moramandus screamed. "Who meddles with the prophecy?" As if in answer, thunder pealed overhead, announcing the arrival of a great dragon and rider, the pair seemingly having formed from the very air itself. Floating down from dizzying heights, they descended to a point level with the keep's rooftops, the dragon's wings beating great bales of wind against the crowd. "The prophecy is false, Moramandus, as are you," Pug shouted from the dragon's back. "You have betrayed the folk of the kingdom, and those of your own people for a lie. It is time for your terror to come to an end." At Pug's command, Arutha ducked, narrowly averting death as the dragon skimmed low overhead, lashing the battlements with its titanic whip-like tail, hurling both Moramandus and Delekhan, screaming like babes, into the horrified hordes who watched far below. Fanning away from the impact of the two, bystanders hastened to escape, fearing a possible second attack from the flying dragon and its equally menacing rider. Standing in the midst of the crowd, Morelf looked on, void of pain or fear, his voice calm and clear as he addressed a goblin lieutenant who stood near him. "Gather your kin and call the retreat." "Lord Morelf, we may still win! Lead us!" Collaring the green-skinned warrior, Morelf lifted him off his feet. "I now lead the nations of the north, and my first command is that I shall lead us home. Call the retreat." Morelf spat, hurling the goblin backwards. "The day is theirs, but I must see to something first." Disregarding the panicked warriors who sought egress from the square, Morelf picked his way over the burning rubble to where his father lay dead, his wolfish eyes reflecting only the clouds of smoke which drifted through Sethanon. For all his father's grand schemes, for all the things he had thought to accomplish, he was nothing now, nothing but a hulk of dead flesh. He'd been a fool to trust the tsurani magician. Leaning over the dead body, Morolf snatched up the golden sword which Moramandus had retrieved from the caverns below. Although he knew very little of the prophecy which had inspired both his father and Moramandus to their deaths, he had no intention of wasting what little they had gained in the battle. Perhaps when he returned to the Northlands he could still find a way to harness the power of the artifact, assuming it had any powers at all. Morelf! Turning, the moredhel war leader had no time to react before the lightning-quick assassin was upon him, driving a knife skillfully through his left eye and deep into his brain, killing him instantly. Without a sound, he crumpled to the ground across his dead father, dropping the sword even before he could raise it. Smiling coldly, Narab withdrew his knife and wiped clean the grey flesh from its bone blade, then snatched Moramandus' prized sword from where it lay abandoned on the ground. One by one he had borne witness to the destruction of his rivals. Gorath of the Ardanian, his own brother Nargo, Delekhan and his son Morelf, all destroyed by their own greed or inaction. Now there would be the matter of dealing with Leolan, who had been Delekhan's mate, and then he might even claim the throne of Sarsagoth for himself, assuming no spawn of the former war leader claimed the right. It would be of small consequence, however, for now he possessed what they had all sought. Assuming he lived, he would learn to exploit this newfound advantage. Resheathing his knife in his boot, he spotted a slow-moving band of moredhel limping towards the dimwood, and he hurried to join them, blending in with the crowd in the same manner in which he had come to Sethanon, as an unrecognizable face in a mob of the beaten and the angry. Arutha watched with mild wonder as Pug conjured the prince's duplicate into non-existence, and just as quickly eliminated the remarkably lifelike illusions of Delekhan and Moramandus, who lay crumpled on the ground below the keep. The corpse of Delekhan's son would have to be removed later by less arcane means. "A shame we didn't have you with us at our Manga, cousin Pug," Arutha said. "A performance such as that before Moramandus' troops might have won us the battle." Pug shook his head. "Spectacle won't win you battles, but at least it may prevent the Dark Brothers from plotting another attack against Sethanon. With the dozen or more moredhel witnesses you've left alive on the battlefield, most of them should return alive to the Northlands. Having seen their leaders die and possessing the object Moramandus sought, they'll have little reason to return here." "Let us hope," Arutha said. "I have little desire to do this again." "What about the artifact?" asked Owen. "A useless sword," Pug replied with a grin. "The Oracle of Arl indicated a hidden room where I might find it when I asked for assistance with the plan. Shortly after that moredhel gentleman who picked it up returns to Sarsagoth, he will discover it useless, and curse the names of both of them for having spilled so much moredhel blood on false prophecies." Seeing James and Locklear poking about in the ruins near the keep, Arutha scowled. "I have a feeling those two are going to keep me busy for months with their questions about this place. Fortunately, they're loyal. If I tell them the subject is closed, they'll both trust me enough to leave the issue alone." "You can always tell them the sword was truly what was buried here," Owen suggested. "The answer's good enough for the moredhel." Arutha shook his head. "Locklear will probably forget the matter once he sees a pretty young face in Krondor. But Jimmy is different. He won't accept it, though he'll never ask anything more. I don't like that I'll have to lie to him. He's as loyal a subject as I've ever had." "What about the tsurani?" Owen asked. Nodding, Arutha seemed equally concerned with Pug's answer. "I shall have to talk with them. A well-respected member of the Assembly of Magicians named Hotchapeppa already knows something of the event, and he will help me assuage their fears," Pug said. "Thankfully, they have their hands tied with another bothersome individual at the moment." Satisfied, Arutha said his farewells and moved off to be of assistance in evacuating the remaining soldiers from the area, fearing that some might become too curious and discover things best left unfound. While watching the prince depart, Pug smiled quietly to himself, gaining Owen's attention. "You seem pleased about something," Owen said. "What is it?" "You will note that the prince said nothing about your silence," Pug said. "You know the secrets of Sethanon. In all of Midkemia, only Prince Arutha, King Liam, Duke Martin, Thomas of Elvander, and myself truly know what lies beneath our feet." As if to reinforce the point, Pug tapped his staff at Owen's feet. "What are you saying?" Smiling, Pug began to lead him down the winding path towards the city's smashed southern gate. "What this means is the prince expects me to guarantee your silence. That will be difficult to do. With you in Tybur and me at my Academy of Magicians at Stardock, it will require that I make a number of long and tiresome journeys for the sole purpose of ensuring you keep your silence. It seems a waste of time." Stopping to look into the sunset, Pug seemed lost in thought. "Of course, it is possible I could take you on as a student of magic, your living expenses paid in full by Prince Arutha. Are you interested in becoming a true magician, Owen?" Laughing for the first time in a great while, Owen twirled his staff in his hands. "I've never wanted anything else." And that's it! The game is over! No credits because they're at the beginning. We have completed Betrayal at Krondor! At long last, the journey is over, and I have to say, this game is one of my favourites now. It has definitely become one of my favourite games. It is so wonderfully well written. The story is really great. The characters are really great. Like, you don't need to know anything about the setting to enjoy it, but my, if you did, you gain so much more. And I'm sad I don't, but it's still a really good game. I mean, I was very shaky with, like, the mechanics and everything at the beginning, and I have to say, I probably completely, stumbled through that final fight, but you know what? I did win. And we only used a little bit of spellcasting and a large amount of hitting people with a stick. But it was such a good game. I'm only sad that I've never played it up until now, because really, really fun game. And a game that has a sequel, I might add. I don't know how good the sequel is compared to this one, but something to definitely consider for later. As I said, plot was great, characters were great, music was great, gameplay was great. There's a reason why lots of people really, really like this game, and I'm only just discovering it now. Oh my! This is a really, really good game. A really good game. Really fun. So, what can I say that would make it better? I mean, I don't know. There's perhaps maybe a few more, maybe actually one of the things, it's weird, like having more, not more game necessarily, because there was a lot of game there, but you know, a little bit more just world in it. Even more world building would have been nice, like learning even more about the setting and even more about the characters would be just the icing on top of the cake. And when that's really the only thing I can say, you know it's a good game. This is a good game. If you haven't played it yourself, even though you've watched me play it yourself, because playing it is very different to watching it. And it's a fantastic experience. A bittersweet ending, because, you know, Gorath and everything else, but still a wonderful, wonderful experience. A wonderful experience. And I'm really glad that I played through it. Really glad indeed. It took a while, but it was worth it. A fine game, a brilliant game, a wonderful game, in a wonderful setting. And so, that's it! Game's over! What's to follow after this? I honestly don't know. It's been so long since we started, I'm not entirely sure what to do going forward, but I do have some ideas. Some interesting ideas that I hope will, bear some very interesting fruit. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? But an age has ended. The age of Betrayal at Krondor appearing in your timeline is done. For the game is done, and a brilliant game it is. And so, I'm Kikoskia, and that was Let's Play Betrayal at Krondor. What's to come? I don't know. Probably not an RPG, though. Not for a little while, because, oh boy! This was an RPG and a half. A fantastic one. But oh my, was it long. Worth playing, though. Absolutely worth playing. And so, I'll catch you next time, folks. And I'll see you then. Later. I'll tell you 2 things that are going to carry over from this game. Well, 3. First, we're set then. Let's just hope our advance is undetected or our advantage will be lost. Clearly, the other thing is This Kingdom Mine. And there's also the voice of Jimmy the Hand. And a 4th thing, which actually now means that it's 4, that amazing sound effect. Oh, that sound effect. Oh, we're just grinning from ear to ear. Fantastic ending, fantastic game. Whatever comes next. Oh, this is going to stay in my memory for ages. Whatever comes next, I'll probably be thinking about this one while I'm playing it, at least for a while. Betrayal at Krondor. An absolute gem. Later.